Good evening, everybody. I welcome you to the March 4th, 2021 council meeting. We will call to order. Before we have our invocation, I want to tell everybody, if you plan on speaking, I think we've got a pretty good crowd tonight. If you would sign a card if you are going to speak. If you're going to give your time to another representative to speak, the city clerk can also give you a card to do that. So that we would just ask you to do that ahead of time before coming to the podium. If you're together, it's great that you're sitting next to one another, but otherwise, if you all can be respectful of one another, with the room being a little small with COVID. So with that, I would like to invite Reverend Sandy Jameson from Good Samaritan Episcopal Church to come forward for the invocation. Please rise, and I would ask you to remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance after the invocation.
Let us pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, send down upon these council persons who hold office in this city of Clearwater the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I want to introduce the dais. On my far right is City Manager Bill Horn.
Good evening.
Councilmember Bunker.
Good evening.
Councilmember Hamilton.
Good evening.
Vice Mayor Albritton.
Good evening.
Councilmember Beckman.
Good evening.
And our illustrious City Attorney Pam Macon.
Good evening.
Is Mr. Freddie Williams in the audience? I do not see
I
him.
don't see him there.
Okay. We'll look at the proclamation to the Boys and Girls Club, and if he comes in, we will we'll do the presentation. With that, I would ask Dr. Michael Grego, our Superintendent of Schools, and Keith Masterides, the principal of Clearwater High School, to come forward to give us a bit of an update on what's going on in Pinellas County Schools, but most importantly, the exciting changes that are going to be going on at Clearwater High. Dr. Grego, great to have you here.
It's great to be here, Mayor. It's great to be here, Mayor, and thank you so much for the invitation. Thank you, City Council members. Mr. Horn, thank you for your leadership and all of the partnerships that you have with our school district. We have a presentation this evening, but I thought I'd open it up with some comments and just about how well and how our school district is doing. Maybe I'll tell you a little story. Last night I had a parent meeting. I have parent cadre meetings throughout the year. Last night I had a meeting with our school families and parents of the Clearwater area, ironically, and I didn't plan that. But in that meeting we talked a lot about the opening of schools. We talked about the unprecedented school year that we had. But one of the things that one of the moms asked me is said it was a gratitude of thanks. And thanks for having the school year being as normal as possible for a school district. As you look around the country and the state, I think we've done a remarkable job. Optimal? No, and everyone knows that this isn't optimal, but the fact is that we are creating an environment for students to excel. And we're creating an engagement so that people can get back to work, and we're creating a school year better than many others as we see. So I want to say thank you for your partnership. The other question I was asked last night of some of your parents in the Clearwater area is, what message do you want us to bring back to our parents? And my answer to that was that we'll get through this together. And that I also see a little bit of the light at the end of the tunnel with this. And that to focus on the good news and focus on the joy and the blessings that we have. Even with everything that we're going through, our school district recorded a historic graduation rate that was announced about a month and a half ago of 91.5%. That is unbelievable, considering that we were out of school for 9 weeks at the end of the year. Our students really hustled, our teachers, our principals, and so many people went after those last credits that were needed, all of the requirements of the state of Florida. And even more important, or just as important, was that we closed the achievement gap. Our Hispanic students, primarily our fastest growing community, not only in the Clearwater and Largo area, but throughout our district, recorded a 92.5%. That's remarkable. That subgroup bypassed the overall graduation rate. And if you think about the 90s, where that is, and our graduation rate is a 4-year graduation rate. We don't get 5 years to graduate. We get 4 years to graduate. We're not the university. We're not the colleges. 4 years is 4 years. And so that's a strict standard, and it's one that we fully understand. The great news that I want us to all celebrate, even through these times, is that if you took the 10 largest school districts in the state of Florida, the number one district when it comes to graduation is Pinellas County, of 91.5. And I'll share those things with you, but I share them, with great joy and others, but I also share them with a lot of work behind it. A lot of major initiatives that we have refused to press the pause button in our school year. We've absolutely refused it. And as I had my principals meeting this morning, I said to them, we're almost there, but let's keep the momentum going. We've recorded some accomplishments and achievement accomplishments that I would have never dreamt of. It was actually a year ago today that I had a principals meeting and talked about COVID for the very first time. And I said, we're going to take a spring break and maybe a week later, and then we'll be back to normal. Well, it never happened. And so these are things that are absolutely out of our control. But the things that we're focusing in on that I'm so excited about is some of our major initiatives and our strategic plans on our website. And I really do ask that you take a look at it. It is very robust. It's aspirational. And that's just the way that our leadership, our school board, myself, we want to be. I'd much rather set extremely high goals and fall a little bit short than set safe goals. And that's how we've been from the very beginning. That's why our graduation rate's well over 90%. Because we don't set safe goals. And we've really, in the last year or two, and in this coming year, we're going to be taking such an intense focus on early literacy, voluntary pre-K programs, grades 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, even those private providers that are providing literacy skills to many of our students, is starting them off on the right foot. In addition, many of you know that with many things that we've attempted to do over the last several years, 5-6 years ago, I made a distinct effort to say to our board and to this community, we need to modernize our schools. The aging infrastructure of our schools is unacceptable. And what we've done in the last 5 or 6 years, number one, we've eliminated approximately 500 portables from this school district, which is a sight that would be ugly to anybody to see 500 portables. They should be used as a temporary facility, not as a permanent facility. And so we are moving out. We have 10 schools right now that we're building wings, that we're eliminating 100 portables. But when we started this process, we've eliminated to date about 500, and our goal is to modernize each and every school. You see things like if you pass by Tarpon Springs High School, you see a brand new leadership conservatory, state-of-the-art, national recognized band, marching band throughout the nation. You see St. Pete High School that we've totally revitalized, and it's a historic school. It's a landmark school in our community, a brand new Pinellas Park Middle School, and so I can go on and on. But you're here because the most important school of all of our schools is Clearwater High School. And we are embarking upon a major project of over $57 million in terms to not only modernize it, it's the brick and mortar is fine, but it's the people inside that really make a school. And it's also the leadership of a school that makes schools. It's not, everything else is low bid. We get it, we do it, but this school is going to be absolutely beautiful when it's done. And it's going to be done in 30 months, so we'll mark your calendars. And we had a groundbreaking. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you to all those who were able to attend. And we had a massed groundbreaking, but in 30 months we're going to have a ribbon cutting. And we're going to walk through one of the most state-of-the-art, beautiful high schools in our community. want to recognize Keith Masterides, the principal of that school for several years now. And his leadership has been second to none in terms of getting us there and seeing us through it too. So Keith, please address this wonderful board, and thank you for your leadership of Clearwater High School.
All right. Does that work? Hit play. Yeah. What's working down here? Is it? You can see it?
It's coming up.
Okay, it's a delay?
Yep.
Is that like a safety thing?
You should be able to see it. You should be able to see it here,
And it's
Keith.
just going to scroll as I'm speaking, so.
Okay.
So good evening, Mayor Frank Hibbard, Vice Mayor Al Britton, council members, City Manager Bill Horn, and your esteemed team. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide a brief update on the renovations and construction that's taking place at Clearwater High School. I'd like to start by thanking all of you for your continued help and support you've provided our school, whether it be for mentoring and tutoring our students, attending school events and functions such as advisory boards, achievement councils, athletic competitions, award ceremonies, graduation, and other unique occasions. Your continued help and support does not go unnoticed, and it's truly appreciated. The other day we had a small groundbreaking ceremony, and due to COVID guidelines and restraints, we couldn't invite everybody. I wish all of you could have been there, but I know you were there in spirit, as your unwavering commitment is apparent. It's great to see fellow alumni on the council, such as members David Albritton and Hoyt Hamilton, and I'm sure there are quite a few others working for the city behind the scenes. Although the mayor didn't graduate from Clearwater and graduated from the other CHS, which I'm not going to name today, we still consider him an alum, as he did start at Clearwater High School and then went on to other places. For all that could not attend our groundbreaking ceremony, I have a small token of appreciation that I'd like to leave behind. It's a picture of the front of the new building, and it's encased in acrylic, so you can put these on your desk. I've got them there, so Mr. Horn, if you wouldn't mind giving them to all of them, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just something little we wanted to say thank you for your continued support. Put it on your desk, so when people come around and they ask, what's going on at Clearwater High, you could say this. When the project's complete, we'll have a school that all will admire and wish their children and grandchildren could attend. It'll be a model to all to look at moving forward. The first model high school in our district, and I would venture to say the first model high school in the Tampa Bay area, if not the state. When I say model, I don't mean the most expensive or the best looking, although I have to say, when you look at the renderings, it definitely is beautiful. But rather a model that in its design, we took a look at the best teaching pedagogy, strategies, and processes to develop the school and classroom setting. Student safety, opportunities for collaboration, current educational practices, and the newest technology have been taken into account when creating the learning environment. Not only have we looked at those best practices, but sustainability over time. And this model environment is being built so it can be easily modified in the future to accommodate the challenging and changing landscape of education. Why is Clearwater High School the first model in Pinellas? Clearwater High School has had many firsts, and I'd like to share some of those with you. The pictures on the video screens coincide with some of the information I'm sharing. The Pinellas School was the first school in Pinellas and opened its doors in 1850. However, in 1905, the Pinellas School eventually became Clearwater High School, thus becoming the first high school in Pinellas County. In 1960, we were the first school in Pinellas to provide an aerospace program. The space race was on, and the district, school leaders, and community saw the importance of providing this experience to our students. That's probably why we have 2 astronauts that graduated from our high school, and the only one in the nation. In the early 70s, we were the first school in Pinellas to offer a JRTC program. The principal of the school at that time was a retired Marine, and he, along with the district, school leaders, and the community, saw the importance of establishing a leadership program for our students. The World Languages program was extremely robust, and in the 1970s already offered Latin, Spanish, German, and French. We're the first school in Pinellas to offer Japanese, of course, when you think about the connection, right, with our city, and later Chinese. The district school leaders, the community, saw the importance of providing those languages at a time when they were presented, as the world was looking to them as leaders in business and commerce. In the 1980s, we were the first school to offer college credit through dual enrollment. The district, school leaders, and the community saw the importance of partnering with St. Pete Junior College, as it's located right down the road from our school, and that providing these rigorous college courses on our campus allowed for a strong articulation to the college experience and is a crucial element in finding success for our students in college. In the 1990s, we were the first school to provide our students with a district-wide business-oriented career academy that offered internship opportunities. The district school leaders and community saw the importance of developing programs for our students that connected them to the current state of the economy and, of course, the future. We're one of the first schools in Pinellas to offer our student athletes lacrosse. The district school leaders and community saw the importance of finding ways to build relationships with all students and, of course, to continue broadening college scholarship opportunities. In the 2000s, we were the first school to provide our students with the wall-to-wall academy model with industry certifications and college credit opportunities. District school leaders and community understood that rigor, relevance, and relationships are key elements in student success. We're the first school in the district to provide our students with dual enrollment opportunities with Embry-Riddle University. The district, school leaders, and community understand the importance of finding the best collegiate aerospace program in the nation and making it accessible to our students. As a result of these and many other firsts, we've had numerous accomplishments, and I'd like to highlight just a few that have occurred this last year and a half. Our extracurricular athletic and arts programs continue to excel. It was just shared with us that our arts programs received 2 gold keys, 6 silver keys, and 7 honorable mentions at the Regional Arts Awards. Boys varsity football, boys varsity basketball, boys varsity soccer, and girls basketball are all district champions. We just found out that 18 students taking Cambridge ACE courses earned the coveted Scholar Award, 7 more earned the Scholar Award with Merit, and 3 earned the Scholar Award with Distinction on their ACE exams. 28 students in total, which, by the way, is the most we've ever received and the highest number in the district. Our school has more students receiving college credit than any other in the district. 86% of our senior class received at least 1 college credit. And several years in a row, the Washington Post has rated us the most rigorous high school in Pinellas County. And by the way, our graduation rate last year was 98.3%. So that was pretty exciting. Obviously, with just a few data points I've shared, the educational programming at Clearwater High School is a model for others to follow. As a matter of fact, our school has been named a model by both the National Career Academy of Coalition and the International Center for Leadership and Education, which, by the way, we received this distinction from the International Center 5 times in the last 8 years, and we're the only one to receive it more than once. We have a strong leadership at the helm of our district, and understands the importance of tailoring our schools to meet the needs of our communities. As a result, the district has allowed our faculty, staff, and community to work with them and the architects to develop the first building that will be a model for others to follow. Hand in hand, our school has worked with the district leadership, curriculum and instruction, facilities and operational services, the architects and the contractors to create an environment that allows for current educational practices, best construction techniques, and an architectural design that will be second to none. So when we talk about this era of Clearwater High School that they're ushering in tradition and thinking of first, our school is going to be the first model in this area, which is really, really exciting. This model has been created and designed and soon will be constructed with the entire community involved. When individuals drive down Gulf Bay and see the new building and courtyards, and when the students enter the classrooms, it will be quite evident that our community, and again, I kept saying how it's a connection, right? It's not just our school or the district. It's the district, the community, and the school hand in hand working together. But our community will have a model school for all to admire for many years to come. So I just want to say thank you for allowing us to come in tonight and say a little bit about the school and share with you how excited we are. The partnership with you all has been, just like I said, second to none. I think about graduation. Been at the school for 15 years, and we've had our graduation every year at Spectrum Field, or what is it going to be called soon? I think they're changing it. Baycare Field. That's just huge. That piece alone, the connection that we have with you all, is second to none. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. We really value you and thank you, and we're looking forward to great things in the next few years, so thanks. Appreciate it.
Mr. Masterides, thank you for accepting the invitation. Superintendent Grego, we appreciate you being here. Any questions from the council? I have to say, I talked to Keith and the superintendent before taking office, and I did something I asked citizens not to do, to jump to conclusions. And I had jumped to a conclusion. I wondered why we weren't scraping the entire campus and starting from scratch. And Keith and the superintendent both assured me that the reason was the gym, due to a tornado that many people remember, was refurbished. Our auditorium is been refurbished and is in great shape. and so has the stadium over the years. So more of the money for the new Clearwater High is being put into the academic areas, which is really where it needs to be. I'm just excited that we're going to have that new front door for Clearwater High right on Gulf to Bay. I think it's going to be a marvelous reflection for the city. And I just thank you both for your leadership. And you can't take Keith away unless you promote him into, your office, please.
Yeah, you had mentioned the stadium. We are getting a brand new artificial turf and track that's coming in. So that's part of the project. And matter of fact, the middle of the month, we have to vacate that area so they could start that piece. So we're getting some upgrades there too.
Very
Really
exciting stuff.
Yeah. So thank you again for the opportunity, and we really appreciate the support.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you again.
Mr. Williams is in the house for the CEO of the Boys and Girls Club. We have a proclamation. Whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Suncoast will celebrate National Boys and Girls Club Week with more than 4,000 clubs serving over 2 million youth throughout the nation on military bases across the globe. And whereas the mission of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Suncoast is to enable all young people, especially those who need us most, to reach their full potential as productive, caring, and responsible citizens, and to empower our kids to build a stronger community. And whereas the focus of the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Suncoast is to provide a fun, safe place to learn and grow, while also providing quality youth development programs focused on academic achievement, healthy lifestyles, good character, and citizenship. And whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Suncoast has been serving the youth of our community for 62 years and currently operates 7 clubs, which serve more than 11,000 youth in 2020. And whereas the Boys and Girls Clubs of the Suncoast is celebrating this milestone with a week-long series of events, Great Futures Reimagined, and is committed to creating more great futures for our members and growing the positive impact of the clubs in our community for decades to come. Now, therefore, I, Frank V. Hibbard, Mayor of the City of Clearwater, Florida, on behalf of the City of Clearwater Council, do hereby proclaim March 1st through the 6th, 2021 to be Boys and Girls Club Week in Clearwater. Mr. Williams, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Freddie Williams, President and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of the Suncoast, and a proud Boys and Girls Club alumni. We've been proud partners of the City of Clearwater, and we look forward to continuing the partnership, and we really appreciate the ongoing support. Thank you very much for proclaiming this week Boys and Girls Club Week.
Thank you for all you do. There you are, sir. Next, if I could have Michael Ballard, the board chair for our Sister Cities Advisory Board, come forward for the 2020 annual report. Good evening.
There's a couple other board, sister cities.
The Sister Cities Advisory Board is appointed by the City Council to make recommendations for the effective functioning of Sister Cities activities and advise the Council of Sister Cities program issues that
Mr.
might
Ballard,
impact.
I don't want to ruin your, can you introduce everybody else? I don't want to ruin your,
And I was about to get to that
okay,
section.
I'm sorry.
But I'm going to just let them, and then I'll kind of skip that program.
My name is Candy Hayes, and I'm also president of Clearwater Sister Cities.
I'm Lucas Smith. I'm the youth advisor on the board.
Pam Benton, I represent the school board.
Thank you all for being here.
So the board is composed of 7 members, 1 member of the City Council, Councilmember Hamilton, a representative of the local business community, the Pinellas School Board World Languages Coordinator, a Clearwater Sister Cities representative, a Clearwater Arts Alliance representative, a youth member 19 years old or younger, and an at-large member. Global events of the past 2 years have had a significant impact on program activities. In 2019, Typhoon Hagibis forced the cancellation of the 60th anniversary delegation visit to Nagano. Further exchanges were canceled due to COVID-19, including the 60th anniversary delegation visit to Clearwater and all teacher and student exchanges through 2021. However, 2020 was not without progress and development of the Sister Cities Cultural Exchange Program. The board, in cooperation with city staff, has initiated a series of projects and actions to carry the program through the pandemic and prepare it for a future return to active in-person exchanges. With the cancellation of the annual student exchanges, a focus has shifted to establishing virtual exchange opportunities. Nagano has begun producing a virtual exchange video highlighting their school and student experience. City staff will coordinate with the students selected for the 2020 high school summer exchange and their families to create a similar product. City staff has also begun an exchange of photographs and artwork with Nagano. Our sister city is preparing an exhibition of Clearwater's recognizable images and destinations as a way of providing their residents with a virtual vacation while international travel is still limited. City staff is also facilitating an exchange of artwork to be used in the Clearwater Arts Alliance's successful Signal Box Wrap program. Art by Nagano artists will be reproduced in vinyl wraps and featured on signal boxes around the city. In addition to these positive virtual exchanges, the board has encouraged the staff project to produce a Sister Cities Cultural Hub, a branch of the program's webpage that will host videos, articles, and other information on Nagano. Visitors will be able to learn about the culture and traditions of Nagano, as well as the benefits of the Sister Cities Exchange program, with the goal of increasing participation in the homestay host and official delegation programs. The board has also been moving forward in developing a Sister Cities relationship with Bourges, France. Following the International Sister Cities model to establish new partnerships, City Council adopted Resolution 1935, authorizing staff to develop a Sister Cities partnership agreement. Staff has remained in contact with representatives from Bourges through the pandemic and is developing language that will define the focus and activities that form the foundation of a Sister Cities relationship. On behalf of the Sister Cities Advisory Board, I would like to thank the City Council for their support. We anticipate that 2021 will continue as a year of new projects aimed at raising the profile of the Sister Cities program and inviting residents to engage with a variety of virtual cultural experiences while social distancing practices remain in effect. So thank you for this opportunity to address the council.
Thank you, Mr. Ballard. Any questions from the council? Thank you for all you do. We appreciate the volunteer work, the hours that you put in. We appreciate Councilmember Hamilton's participation too.
Well, I think, yeah, this board is very focused, and I give them credit for that. And I enjoy working with them, but for the people in the audience and out, that may be at home watching, the Bourges France effort, for those that aren't familiar, we have a company right here in Clearwater, Monin, M-O-N-I-N. They manufacture liquids that are used in adult beverages, not the actual alcohol, but if you go to any bar, you're probably going to see a bottle of the or two of the Monin products to make some of the tastier drinks that bars are known for. And Bourges, France is the home office for Monin. So because of that relationship, the city of Bourges has been very, very interested and very enthusiastic in working with us to establish this relationship. So I think it's going to be very beneficial for us.
Marvelous. Well, thank you all again for coming out this evening.
Thank you.
I'd ask if there are any amendments from the minutes of the February 18th, 2021 meeting. Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the minutes.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. At this time, I'd like to open it up to citizens to be heard. If there are citizens in the audience that would like to speak to items that are not on the agenda, please come forward and state your name. We respectfully ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes. Our agenda's back on the wall in that holder. Okay, seeing none. I would ask if there are any items on the consent agenda, item 7.1.
Gentleman walking forward, is he?
Mayor, you may have one.
Okay. You here for citizens to be heard?
I am.
Okay. If you could fill out a card.
I have.
Okay. then please come forward if you could just state your name.
Yes, Jason Mastropietro. I'm with the Friends of Moccasin Lake, and I'm here about Moccasin Lake Nature Park, and I'm at 1065 Cephas Road in Clearwater. I'm here just to say thank you, and not to complain, not to ask for anything, but thank you for all the good things that have been happening over at the park over the last 4 or 5 years. There's been a significant effort that was done with the rebuild of the Interpreter Learning Center and the classroom as far as executing the master plan with the park. And we have a very strong and good working relationship with Lloyd Simmons, who's been there throughout this whole period, as well as in succession Felicia Leonard, Natalie Lamb, Felicia Sabertinelli, and Melissa Galderald. And we look forward to having a strong continued working relationship with the city and having a good symbiotic relationship. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming out tonight. It is a wonderful park, and if you haven't been out to Moccasin Lake, it really is a hidden gem. Unfortunately, it's somewhat of a hidden gem in Clearwater, but it's highly recommended. So thank you for coming out and saying those nice things, bringing people's attention. Anyone else for citizens to be heard? Okay. I would ask if there are any items from either the council or from citizens in the audience.
7.9, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other items that would like to be removed from the consent agenda? All right. Do I have a motion to approve items 7.1 through 7.8?
Sure, I make a motion to approve agenda items 7.1 through 7.8.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. Item 7.9.
Reappoint John Katraki to the Community Development Board with a team to a term to expire February 28, 2025.
Council members, in your agenda pack, we have listed John Petrocchi. He is currently serving in his first term and is eligible for reappointment.
Any questions of the clerk? Anyone to speak to item 7.9?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Council members, I am Bill Jones, and I did fill out a card. The Clearwater Development Code was carefully developed in 1998 to promote growth and sensible redevelopment, something that was balancing the incentive for development and the existing community. The Community Development Board in Clearwater has decision power that some cities are reserved only for elected officials. Because of that, the appointment or reappointment of board members is an important duty. So what is the criteria to warrant reappointment? I would argue that it is simply twofold. One, the knowledge of the code duties of the Community Development Board, and two, compliance with the code. The recent Citizens Guide for the Community Development Board lists a requirement that the CDB must find that there is competent, substantial evidence that the proposed development meets both the relevant flexibility criteria for use and two, the general applicability criteria found in section 3-914A. It further states that unlike legislative decisions, a quasi-judicial decision must be based solely on the evidence presented and cannot be based on opinions of the members of the CDB. So let's look at the evidence. On page 364 of the June 25, 2019 CDB meeting, the applicant for reappointment states, I've got my opinion on it, and that's where I'm going to end up being with this. And those were distributed to you. His reappointment application today lists his understanding of the duties and responsibilities of the board, in part as, quote, to consider all matters in a fair, just, and nonpartisan review in the best interest for the city of Clearwater and its residents,
residents, unquote. There is no reference in either of these documents to the code requirements. Code requirements to determine the presence of competent substantial evidence that both the flexibility criteria for use and the general applicability criteria of 3-914 are met. He's a nice guy, no question about that. But he's not showing evidence of knowing and practicing code duties of the community development position.
Thank you,
Let's give
Mr.
somebody
Johnson.
else a chance. Thank you.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Well, I'm gonna come, this, that was given to us, yes. This was a very controversial item that the Community Development Board had to decide upon, shown by the fact that it had 383 pages from the minutes taken. And I think you look at that one quote that Mr. Johnson highlights, but I think, after you've heard all of the evidence, because at this hearing there were representatives in favor and representatives against, and after you hear all of those testimonies, you make your decision. And your decision is your opinion on the evidence that was presented. So just the fact that this one, 2 lines are highlighted, I don't think, he says in another part of this, I did not come into this with a predisposed opinion. I came here to listen, but now my opinion after hearing the evidence is this. So I think it's a misinterpretation of 2 lines of 386 pages. So with that, I would recommend approval of agenda item 7.9.
Vice Mayor, you had something down.
Yeah, I served with Mr. Quadracki and on the CDB. I thought he was a very good member. He was one that weighed both sides of the issues, and this was a very controversial item, as Mr. Hamilton said, and to just pick one line out of it, I think it's not really representing. He was somebody, I can tell you this, that weighed both sides. I remember a lot of different things that came before us, and he pondered. I mean, he actually listened to both sides and would try to make the best opinion. So I'm that doesn't sway me for wanting to reappoint him for that position.
Other comments, questions? Councilmember Beckman?
Well, I'm familiar with this in that I sat in the audience while people were speaking for and against this development there at Edgewater. And there are problems with interpreting what is, fits with the overall aesthetics of a neighborhood, and compatibility is a judgment call. And, I think we've talked about, or I've talked about this with Mr. Johnson and others, about having, foundational education with board members about what is it, how are we looking at things when you're removed from a particular case, and you can have agreed upon parameters and understandings. And I think, I don't know if the CDB does that right now, but it's something that they, we might want to look into as far as making sure we all understand what we're looking at before we have a controversial decision in front of us. And I think, this is, if he states I've got my opinion on it and that's where I'm going to end up being with this, I mean, his opinion that the compatibility might be really skewed is his opinion and judgment. And, that's why those appointments are important.
Councilmember Bunker and then the Vice Mayor.
I know this was very contentious for the folks living in the neighborhood. I didn't follow it as carefully as Council Member Beckman, but I think it's tough to make an opinion from just this one sentence that was handed to us right now. You know, I think we might need a little more time to look at this.
Vice Mayor?
Well, Councilman Beckman, I mean, you're voicing your opinion as well. I mean, so everybody has opinions when they listen to one thing or another, depending on what side that they fall. So I can tell you, John, I know John as a person that does weigh out both sides. Now, I understand that after this was over, it didn't go well for the neighborhood, but I tell you, the neighborhood has a hotel right across the street, so it's not like all, I mean, it's a very controversial, both sides have weight to it on this. And so when you're trying to figure out and navigate the code and what is there, it takes all not just the code, it takes all kinds of things that you need to take in consideration. So I think by calling out one sentence in a 300-page document, 364-page document, is unfair. And I know that the person that's talking, that came up and gave us this, was representing more leaning toward the homeowners in that subdivision, and I think Councilman Beckman is too. So I just wanted to tell you that opinions count. So,
Councilmember Hamilton.
Well, later tonight, we're going to have an agenda item with the Clearwater K Club. We're going to hear from both sides of that issue. We're going to hear from representatives from both sides of that issue. And in the end result, it's a quasi-judicial, just like this hearing was for the community.
It's legislative.
Well, it's still, we are going to listen to evidence from both sides. Then we have to make our decision, and our decision is basically our opinion on whose presentation and who whose side do we think has a stronger case. That's our, you could say that's my opinion. And that's why I look at these two lines that are highlighted out of the entire thing, and I don't, the other line, it wasn't highlighted, but in the minutes it says, Mr. Kotraki said, I did not come here predisposed on where I was going to vote. But as he was making his speech at the end about his position and where he was, he said, this is my opinion. So that's, I think it's taken out of context the way it's presented, and that's why I make the motion to approve the agenda item and reappoint Mr. Kotraki to the
and I'll second the motion.
Community Development Board.
Well, I have a motion and a second. I sat on the CDB before being on the city council. So, the job of being on the CDB is, first of all, to understand the code, the role that you play as a CDB member, and then you are doing interpretation of the code. And at some point, which is really what I think you were saying, Councilmember Beckman, is you have to render an opinion one way or the other. And usually it makes somebody happy and someone not so happy. I wouldn't just use this document. Obviously, it's pretty voluminous, but I would also look at the entire term of an individual. And, I mean, that's really the body of work that you have to look at. And so for that, I know Mr. Kotraki, I think he's very well-intentioned. He's very involved in his own neighborhood. I think he has the overall city of Clearwater at the center of his priorities. So I'm going to support reappointing him. Councilmember Bunker.
Was there anybody else who wanted to be on this board, or?
Well, we have 5 applicants.
This is a reappointment that we all at the work session said, we're fine putting him back on.
Okay.
Is a reappointment. Then we have another position to fill, someone who was not eligible for reappointment, so that creates a vacancy.
Right.
I got you.
So
I remember you.
Okay, any other comments or questions? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, unanimous. 8.1.
Declare surplus for the purpose of sale through invitation to bid 23-21, real property located at 2150 Range Road, whereby the successful bid, 1, exceeds $580,000. 2, requires the property to generate ad valorem tax revenue. Alternatively, an otherwise tax-exempt purchaser shall enter into a payment in lieu of taxes agreement for all city portions of real property taxes, tangible property taxes, utility taxes, and any other applicable taxes. And 3, requires the property owner to increase the site's property value through capital investment, which must commence within 1 year of purchase. Ms. Sanderson.
Thank you, Denise Sanderson, Economic Development and Housing. On Monday, Phil Kirkpatrick presented this item requesting council declare the property surplus to the city's needs and establish the conditions for sale, which Mr. Horn just listed for you. I won't repeat them. Some questions were asked, however, about the history of the property as it relates to environmental concerns. I communicated with Joe DeSico, he's the city's senior environmental specialist, and he's not aware of any Phase 1 or other environmental assessments or studies that have been conducted on the property. Additionally, he determined that it is not a state-listed site, meaning that Florida DEP is not aware of any known contaminants having been produced, delivered, or stored at the site. There are, however, some neighboring properties that, should financing be sought by the successful bidder, that it may trigger a Phase 1 environmental assessment. So how this works in our bid process is, in talking with Rob Burzak, he's the city's real estate coordinator, I confirmed that the city's bid process for real estate typically includes language that the city is selling the property as is, and that is what is included in our ITB. And after we've identified the successful bidder, we enter negotiations, provide a suitable due diligence period in which environmental concerns would typically be evaluated at that point. They'd also look at permitting, what's the intended use, is it allowed at the site, those kinds of things. And should negotiations fail during that due diligence period, we then move on to the next qualified successful bidder and enter negotiations with that person. Or we would bring it back to council for reconsideration. So if, for instance, if there were any environmental concerns at the property, one, they would likely be the responsibility of those neighboring properties if contaminations have landed on those other, on that subject property. 2, if environmental concerns would have to be addressed at the property by the successful bidder, we could consider a decrease in sale price, if you will, and that would come back to council for their considerations. So again, I'll reiterate that there are no known conditions on the site, and it's only due to its proximity to other sites that there could be some environmental Phase 1s that would be required post-bid. I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Sanderson? Anyone from the public to speak to item 8.1? I have a motion.
Move to pass item 8.1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. 8.2.
Approve the contraction of the Clearwater K Community Development District and pass ordinance number 9437-21 on first reading. Ms. Aiken.
So, Council, I have discussed this with you previously, and we had a brief discussion about this on Monday. This is a petition by the owners of a portion of the property of the Clearwater K Community Development District, seeking to contract out of the district. The district was formed in September of 2005, and this particular portion of the property is asking to be removed. The petition met the requirements of statute. They provided the information requested. They have provided an statement of estimated regulatory costs. All that information has been presented to you. And so you have the ordinance before you. After you hear the presentations of the parties, the petitioner has requested 20 minutes. The other parties have not at this point requested additional time. and then you make your findings based on the criteria in the petition.
We do have representation, though, from both sides.
We do have the attorney for the Community Development District here. We have an attorney representing some of the owners within the property, and then we also have the petitioner attorney.
Okay. Well, we'll start with the petitioner. And it was determined that 20 minutes would be sufficient. Ms. Haig?
Yes, sir.
Evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members, and I appreciate you accommodating my request for some additional time. This is a difficult issue. It's, get that out of your way. There are a lot of facts. I've submitted for the record a book that's somewhat like this. I thought I would use a PowerPoint just to take some excerpts of that, and it would help to make the issues more understandable. My name is Scott Clark. I'm from Winter Park, where I practice, just a short and painful hop up I-4. Our practice is, the majority of our practice is in the area of community development districts. The petitioner is the owner of the View Apartments, and they're depicted there. And what you have is really a pretty good view of all the lands within the community development district. There are the View Apartments. Back and to the right are the Grand Venezia condominiums, which are part of the district. And then there are a couple office buildings to the far right, closer to State Road 19, that are within the district. And they're just another view of the view, pardon the pun there. Blank slide. This picture depicts in an overhead the community development district boundaries. There are the View Apartments there, kind of in the upper left hand. There's an office building which we call Harborside to the south of that, and then you see the Grand Venezia condominiums. There is a separate condominium project, Grand Bellagio, which is not part of the CDD. Part of the issue here is that the two condominiums are private properties. They sit behind this gate that you see. It's a guard gate. It's limited access. And as you see from that sign, it's considered to be private property. The CDD, which is a public entity, was created, as Ms. Aiken said, in 2005 by this board. The mayor and Councilman Hamilton were there, and perhaps you can remember it. I'm going to show you some pictures that may bring back that night for you, for better or for worse. A CDD, for those that may not be as familiar with it, is a special purpose unit of local government. It is a local government. Sometimes people wrongly call them quasi-governments. They're not. They do a lot of the things you do in terms of the Sunshine Law and public records and things like that. And they're created essentially under Chapter 190 of the Florida statutes to create, construct, develop, and manage and maintain public infrastructure. And so in 2005, this was brought before you with a petition and a quite grandiose plan. Now, currently, the CDD owns a couple parcels of property. They're depicted here. These are from the property appraiser's website. This is essentially all of the grounds of the Grand Venezia condominiums except for the building pads themselves. And if you consider it in a condominium typical context, these would be the common elements of the condominium there. But this is different because this CDD approved a $30 million bond issue, and then it quickly spent $20 million of that to pay the developer to acquire that property, and then to acquire that property, which is the parking area and grounds surrounding the Harborside office building there. Originally, portions of the property where the View Apartments now were also acquired with part of that $20 million. There subsequently was a default in payment of the bonds. I don't think the developer ever paid a single payment of the bonds. And that resulted in the foreclosure of what's now the View Apartments. As part of the foreclosure, the bond debt was released from that, and ultimately the property was sold in 2016, and apartments were built, which the petitioner now owns. Your consideration tonight is guided by some statements in the statute. This is section 190.005, and these are the standards. Now there are the standards that this council reviewed and passed on when the original petition was done in 2005. And there are a list of questions that have to be considered. The petitioner makes the argument about why he thinks those standards have been met, which the petitioner did in 2005. And a very thick petition with engineering reports and schematics and drawings was put into place. These same standards are what you will consider tonight for the issue of contraction. The statute points to the exact same place. And so looking forward now and comparing it with what you approved in 2005, I think your task is to decide whether these statements are still true with respect to the View Apartments. These are the things that were presented to the board in 2005. This is the overall master plan. You can see that it includes a destination resort hotel, dining, eating, boat slips. That's the hotel property that you see there, quite lush. And it included a water park with lazy river that you see depicted here. And as presented to you, all of these things were interrelated. There were grand pathways of architectural significance that wandered through the property and did in fact create what would have been an interrelated and functional community. So I can't tell you that the council was wrong when it looked at these pictures, these depictions, and said, yeah, that is something that meets the statute. So that it didn't work out is not your fault, and we'll discuss in a minute the fault of that. Things quickly broke down after walking away with something close to $20 million in cash for land transactions. The developer didn't really develop anything. In fact, the only permit that was issued was to tear down the blighted shopping center, we call it the Levitt Center, that was on the property that's now the View Apartments. So to the extent that got done, I suppose that there was some good that came of this. But fairly quickly in 2008, the CDD board adopted this resolution. And the resolution, although virtually nothing had been done, declared the project to be complete. And as grounds for that, you see in the excerpt there that the district engineer issued a certificate that determined that the project cannot be completed in a sound and economical manner within a reasonable period of time. And so the CDD board said, we're just not going to do anything else. We're not going to build all these things that were put before you. Part of the problem, as you see here, is that the developers and promoters of this were ultimately indicted, arrested and sentenced to 40 years in prison for essentially running a Ponzi scheme. Now, I believe that if you look at the elements in the statute, you'll determine that there's good cause for granting this petition for contraction. But I'm going to let some of the other people involved tell you for themselves, because I think everybody involved, although some people may speak in opposition to this petition, I think there's some things that everybody agrees with. Everybody agrees that this was a terrible project in the way that it went. I think everybody agrees that things didn't really happen that you were told would happen. Now, the first excerpt is from the circuit judge here, who has heard and is still hearing a case by the Grand Venezia Association where they've sued the CDD, they've sued the bondholders, trying to dissolve the district, trying to be relieved of their bond debt and some other things. Mr. Barnes may be better off at telling you that than I can. But the judge, when he heard the evidence in trial and got to closing argument, one of the things he said is essentially when the project lost the Levitt's property, which is now the View Apartments, it really undermined the whole development plan. He said it put a hole in the middle of the plan so that it really couldn't move forward in any semblance of what was intended. Now, the current chairman of the CDD board had his deposition taken recently in this litigation, and he had some things to express about his opinion about it, and you see them here. He says, so the city of Clearwater was hoodwinked into believing that this was going to be a grandiose community. And he says that he believes the entire district was created on a fraud, that it was illegitimate to begin with. Now, one of the issues that's risen, I showed you the picture of the private entry gates earlier, and that's an issue because governmental entities that issue tax-exempt bonds have to sign certificates agreeing that the project that they build with those bonds is a public project. And so the CDD owns some property that are behind these gates, but won't let the public and won't let the residents of the View use those because they consider them to be private amenities. The attorney for the bond trustee wrote a letter in 2019 to the CDD and pointed out that they were violating covenants in their bond indenture by not allowing the general public use of those facilities. Now, Mr. Dwyer spoke about that as well, and in his viewpoint, the general public is not permitted access to the area behind the gates due to agreements that were in place before the CDD. When he was asked whether the benefit from those areas was solely for the benefit of Grand Venezia as opposed to the rest of the CDD and the general public, he said yes, and he said when asked that the residents outside the gate, which would be my client's tenants, don't get any benefit from those assets. Nevertheless, being in the CDD, we get charged for them, and so there's a very hefty annual payment on the tax bill that's associated with that. Now, the Grand Venezia people, the association, as I mentioned, filed a lawsuit against the CDD and the bondholders. And here's what they think about the CDD. The CDD is not functioning as a legitimate community development district. Grand Venezia seeks to have it dissolved. Although the CDD exists on paper, it's not been functioning as a legitimate community development district. No public purpose is being served by the CDD. At the present, the CDD does not remotely resemble a viable community development district, and one of the reasons they stated for that was the fact that the lands that are now the View were foreclosed upon and deeded to a purpose not within the original development plan. This slide didn't work very well, but this is an excerpt from a report that I obtained from the engineer who actually developed the plans for the View Apartments. And I asked him whether any of the stormwater system flowed into the CDD stormwater system. He viewed it, said, no, it's a completely separate, self-contained system that is maintained and permitted and required to be maintained by the View Apartments. I got that opinion because part of the justification that they gave me for assessing our site was that we used their stormwater system. That simply isn't true according to the engineer that built it. Now, I also asked our property manager the question, and this is presented to you for the record in the affidavit. Does the Community Development District maintain any of the grounds within the View Apartments? The paving, landscaping, all the things that they do and spend money on in that area that I showed you outlined in green before. And she said no, and said that even on the entry road, the landscaping adjacent to the apartments is maintained by their contractor. And so we go back to the questions for your consideration, and I'll suggest what I think the answers are. Were all the statements within the petition found to be true and correct? I think everybody agrees that they weren't true and correct. They were false and fraudulent. Is the area sufficiently contiguous to be developed as one functional interrelated community? And I think this is the element that's most critical for your review, because the CDD doesn't serve as a functional interrelated community at all. There's no interconnection. The CDD doesn't provide services for our property like they do the others. In fact, the only interrelationship that we have with the CDD is once a year when they send us a bill, essentially. Is the district the best alternative for delivering community development services? Well, it's not for us as to our property because they don't deliver any services to us. And is the area served amenable to separate special district government? Well, their area that will be left over is, because it's behind the gate and it's an area that's owned by the CDD in which they're responsible to maintain. Our area is not. The View Apartments are not amenable at all to being governed by the CDD. And that's what I have. I'll reserve the rest of my time for rebuttal.
Okay. The representative of the condominiums. How much time did we use, Ms. Call?
The other individual has 2 minutes and 41 seconds left.
Of the 20 minutes? Okay.
Good evening, Mayor Hibbard, Vice Mayor Albritton, council members, City Manager Horn, and illustrious council, Ms. Aiken, as well as the illustrious Mr. Delk, both of whom know me better than they would like. My name is Bruce Barnes. I'm the attorney who got the first phone call in 2007 from a victim of this K-Club scam, and I've been involved in litigation with this failed community development district ever since. The last iteration, which Mr. Clark mentioned, is still pending, and that is on behalf of the Grand Venezia COA, the Condominium Association. In 2016, I filed, a lawsuit for the purpose of trying to either put an end to the CDD or worst case scenario, lower the assessments for the Grand Venezia condominium owners. Not one penny of infrastructure has ever been built. We went to trial in 2018, got a reassessment order. Judge Duraka held that the CDD would continue to exist. In late 2018, fortunately, some new CDD board members, including Mr. Dwyer sitting out here, got on the CDD board Mr. Malloy, district council was appointed, new district manager, and they are trying to salvage whatever is left, which is next to nothing. And so we, the Grand Venezia, sympathize with the view owner, excuse me, a little hoarse, in the sense that the CDD has never really functioned. It's never performed legitimate governmental services for the burdened landowners. The difference between, excuse me, the View and the Grand Venezia people is that the View, because of different foreclosures, deeds, whatever, doesn't have any bond debt on it. My clients, the landowners, have bond debt. And consequently, we can't file a petition with the city to extricate ourselves until we get rid of that somehow. The lawsuit's moving along. We've had some progress. The assessments are now at a point where, if Judge Straka ultimately blesses them, we hope to write a check, buy out, come back in front of you, ideally on a joint petition with a View, and put an end to this CDD. I agree with, excuse me, a lot of the matters that Mr. Clark said. I don't agree with all of them, but they're really not all that consequential. The View recently purchased this developed apartment complex. The View did not, the owners of the View now did not develop it. They bought knowing that the CDD is in place. They're not paying any bond debt service, as I mentioned, and good for them, I wish we weren't. But there are ongoing operations and maintenance assessments already, excuse me, over the years. The Grand Venezia owners, along with the Harborside office complex next door, have paid a disproportionate amount of assessments, both for bond debt as well as operations and maintenance.
Continue.
So we just need some breathing room. We ask that the petition be denied with the hope we can come back in front of you jointly in the next few months. We need funding to pay the fixed expenses, district council, district manager, audit expenses. And these poor landowners, I represent some people who bought in the Grand Venezia before the CDD was even formed. And they're still paying both bond debt and operations and maintenance assessments. And we need funding to keep this thing to the point where we can hopefully put it to bed soon. Any questions?
Any questions at this time? We may come back.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Sorry about the voice.
Not at all. Anyone else to speak? I understand there's some residents that live in the condominiums. I ask that you filled out a card, and if you could just state your name. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, good evening. I came to Grand Venezia in February of '09. I listened to stories from people who were mentally ill in terms of what had took place there preceding my arrival. People who actually had mental breakdowns over this. They talked to me about people who committed suicide over this issue. I concur with what Mr. Barnes is saying. Let's make it short for you. We can do our best to try and resolve this problem, and we've been working at it for a number of years to do so. I've seen everything. I saw mismanagement by celebrity resorts, milking the owners for rent. I talked to many different owners about how Clark and Swartz took money that was for the community and they never saw the results of it. So what I'm trying to tell you is I concur with Mr. Barnes, and I hope that things work out. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm the property manager for the Grand Venezia. I also was the property manager for Grand Bellagio. To manage this property presents difficulties that I've not seen on other properties. I've been managing properties for since 2003, and it's just I'd like to be able to sit down and tell you the difficulties, because I cannot operate outside of the footprint of the clubhouse. It's all controlled by the district. What Mr. Barnes said was a great explanation of everything that's taken place, but I really don't think the CDD benefits anyone. And I have some letters that I'd like to turn over to be part of the record from the owners, but they're just asking for some time so that they can get the budget where the owners aren't impacted yet again. It's just very unfortunate how everything's happened, and we ask that you just give some time to the CDD to come up with the funding so that the owners aren't negatively impacted again by this. Thank you for your time.
You can give those letters to the clerk for the record. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing me. My name is Linda Robertson. I am a resident of the Clearwater KA Community District, the CDD, and I've been an owner at the Grand Venezia since 2009. When I purchased the property, it was disclosed to me during the purchase that there was a tax due to the CDD, just as the View owner, when he purchased or when they purchased the property, they were disclosed that there was a real estate tax. So this was not an unknown fact to them. So I ask all of you that if you're willing to think about this, to not just do a partial contraction, because that is not fair to the owners of the Grand Venezia, that you either look at it as a total dissolution of the CDD or reject the partial contraction request from the View, because they knew about it. They came into this, they purchased the property knowing that there was a CDD tax. So I just ask that you look at that and deny the partial contraction request. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Ronald Schulte. My wife and I bought a unit at Grand Venezia to retire in. We knew there was a CDD. We knew that the View apartments were paying. We paid ours. The Grand Venezia board took us to court to try to get us relieved from the CDD payments. It was denied. I really thought the basis of the law is based on what is reasonable. So why is it reasonable that the View apartments can be relieved and not Grand Venezia? So again, I think you should take it under consideration to take both the projects and take them out of the CDD, and I think the CDD should be dissolved. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, council members. My name is Dan Malloy. I am the District Counsel for the Community Development District since 2018, let me make that clear. Our Board of Supervisors met last week and discussed this issue. They did not take a position in either support or opposition to the petition which is before you. They did direct me to appear tonight and ask you to continue this matter for a period of at least 30 days so that they might consider it more and perhaps come up with some more financial certainties as to where they can go with it. So I would make that request. I may be able to answer any questions if you have any, or I may not. But
what do you believe the final outcome of the CDD is going to be?
I think once the litigation is involved, we currently have major lawsuits with the bondholders, and we currently we're challenging our last assessment. If that's upheld, I think that this will be back in front of you for a total dissolution within a year. That would be my guess.
And who are the bondholders now? I saw
It's called Invesco, and it used to be one of the Oppenheimer funds that have changed their name.
Okay.
It's basically a junk bond that was issued in 2005 after a bond anticipation note.
Thank you. Any questions? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, my biggest concern is the time and how much, and you just said probably within a year, but litigation, I mean, it could go on much longer than that, so.
Sir, that's absolutely correct. We're doing our best to bring it to a conclusion, but I can't predict what courts are going to do to a certainty.
I mean,
It's been ongoing since 2015, so.
yeah, yeah. Okay, that's it, thank you.
Anything else? All right.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I'm Don Dwyer. I'm the chairman of the district. You should offer me condolences. I took over the district on November 28th of 2018 under what I would call a hostile takeover. And that was that I recognized as an owner within the Grand Phoenicia community, because I had been attending many meetings, that the district was not operating on a legitimate basis. I was told repeatedly by attorneys that they wouldn't answer my questions. And to make a long story short, I'm going to give you my vision since November 28th of 2018, when I asked Mr. Malloy to please join me and help resolve this conflict that we had within the district. And thank God he's still with me. The Flournoy Corporation developed the property after purchasing it from, and I'm still not clear on this, whether the purchase was from the district or was the purchase from the bondholders. But the reality is that they purchased the land for roughly $6 million. They then, in the middle of that development, came back to the district before I was the chairman and involved, other than listening as a spectator in the audience, and asked the district for relief on their portion of the O&M assessment. At that point, the previous board said, we'll look into it. Well, as things would happen, I took over as the chairman. That horse had left the barn, if you will. So now that ends up in my lap with my new board, that we have to do an evaluation of what we think is fair and valuable for them, so that it's equitable for all the parties. So the part that wasn't discussed was the fact that they had asked for that adjustment. We gave them that adjustment. The district gave them a $145,000 annual adjustment to reduce their assessment. True statement, that was done. Well, then after that, much to my frustration, now they come back and they don't want to have to pay anything. Well, I agree with that. And I agree with the statements that you heard earlier. This whole thing, and I feel bad for you all. I feel bad for you, sir, okay? Because everybody was hoodwinked. The reality for me as a homeowner within the community is it was not disclosed to me. I knew nothing about it. It was not in any of my real estate documents when I went to settlement that I was strapped with an additional $30,000 worth of debt on my mortgage. That's when I got pissed. That's when I got really frustrated and I got involved. So the reality is that when Flournoy bought the property, they knew it was encumbered. When the View bought it from Flournoy as a completed property, they knew it was encumbered. And now here we are, the Grand Phoenicia has been paying debt assessments and O&M assessments for the bulk of the community, including the land that the View sits on, since it was established. They're the only people that have been paying the freight. So my frustration is, and I would hope that you all would hear it, that as soon as we can come up with a settlement on the debt, that we be back before you to dissolve the district. And that's my personal opinion. I'm not speaking on behalf of the board tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Borsey. I'm an owner of the condo at the Grand Phoenicia. Just like one of the previous speakers, I bought in there a year and a half ago as my retirement home. I also was not aware of any non-ad valorem tax assessments to the community. But it is what it is right now. But I'm here to speak against this proposal. Basically, it's nothing more than a financial arrangement as we're talking about. We don't care if it's in the public lands, non-public lands. It's a financial arrangement. They want to get rid of a debt, and I don't want to take it. They were aware of this assessment. They agreed to this assessment, probably with the knowledge that, well, once we're sitting there and we're established, then we'll try to get out of it later. Now, the CDD assesses And as an operating unit, they have a budget. And if one part of that budget goes away, they still have operating costs, so that that money that's allocated has to come back and be reallocated to us. I'm already paying almost $1,300 a year to the CDD. I don't want to increase my payment another $400. I'm sure you could put yourself in that position. You wouldn't want to be hit with an additional assessment because somebody else didn't want it. You know, it's like any other legal agreement. I might not want to pay my mortgage, but I want to keep my house. So why don't you give my mortgage payment to somebody else? Give my car note to somebody else, but I'm going to keep my car. And that's basically what it's all boiling down to. You know, it's immoral an issue. I feel it's unethical to ask for this to be dissolved just for a part of it. And like some of the other speakers, I think if we're going to dissolve this for one section, it probably needs to be dissolved for everybody. So that was my point on here. It's a financial thing only, and I don't want to take their share of it on my shoulders. So I know you all have a judgment call to make. And you know, put yourself in my shoes and in the shoes of the other owners. And certainly we don't want to take any additional debt either. I think maybe we'd be better off putting this thing aside, letting it rest for a while, and coming back later to talk about maybe dissolving the entire CDD. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else?
Thank you very much, Mayor and Councilman. I'm a new owner there, so I want to speak from just being there in 2019. And I was aware of the CDD taxes. They were in with the taxes, so I have no complaints. I was aware. And I find it strange that the View all of a sudden wants it just threw out. Well, we all do. That's something we all do. But I think we should all, pay our fair share. Now, I'm a retiree, and going up $300, $400, $500 a year may hurt me. I don't know. But right now, my opinion is along with the others, it's been going on for many years, and it does need to be settled. And I hope it is settled in the next year. That sounds good to all of us. But as we go forward now, my opinion is I have to pay my share, whether it's fair or not. Other people need to pay theirs. They had, just like me, when I went before the association, they explained to me about the CDDs. And I thought it was just part of another taxes. I knew nothing about it. So, but anyway, thank you for my time, or your time. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else from the public?
Hey there. My name
Good
is
evening.
Dina Barkley, and I am a resident at Grand Venezia. And I have been a renter there for about the past 4.5 years. I would love to own there, but unfortunately, I can't afford to own there between all the costs, between the condo association fees, along with these additional costs. I'm working to save and I'm actually a realtor, and I have another full-time job, and I've looked to own there. And as a single person, it's not something that's feasible for me. And I know that it will become that much more out of reach if this comes into play, because it's just going to shift onto a group of homeowners that didn't ask for it, that didn't know about it. It's going to put it out of reach for other homeowners when a corporation came in and took this and accepted it as part of the original agreement. As we all know in real estate, it's a contract. Look it over before you sign it. You're entering into it. So I don't understand why, as a corporation, they should be able to bully their way out of this and leave it on the heads of single homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before I close public comment? Please come forward, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Nancy Thibodeau, and I live at the Grand Venezia, Unit 1236.
I rented for about 5 years at the Venezia, and I've owned for the past 3 years. I've gone to many of the meetings and the court sessions that were taken over with the CDD. I have also, gone to many of the COA meetings. I've seen how hard and how emotional it gets with this issue, and I've seen, the unit owners come together, all feeling very much the same way. I wasn't there when this scam went down, and I wasn't told when I purchased my property. But once I realized what I was in for, excuse the expression, but I had to suck it up. And I understand that this is a property I own, and these are the consequences. And I come out, and I try to participate, to be a part of this, and to help in any way that I can to enlighten people that, all of us have been bamboozled, as they say. But these people, we don't use the pool over at the View, or at least I'm not aware that I have the use of that over there. When they're talking about, they can't use ours, well, I'm not sure what the dynamics need to be about that. But I do know that I pay my ad valorem taxes every year, and these people, when they purchased, were clearly aware, unlike I was, that there was a fee to be paid. And, I'm aware also that they want to do away with the CDD. So I kind of want to reiterate what others have come up here and said, in that we're all in this together. So I don't think anybody should be skirting out. And once again, the people that are paying their dues for whatever reason, you want to look at this, it's like we're all in this together. And I think from beginning to end, it's the ride we must all take. So I hope you consider that. There is a lot of emotion in this, and it's unfortunate for all of us. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
I want to say, first of all, I feel for these people. I have, since 2008, litigated broken, busted CDDs all over the state. And there's some horror stories, but this by far is the worst one that I've seen. So I'm not here to bully them. I feel for what they're going through. Everybody wants the CDD to go away. But as Mr. Barnes pointed out, there's a difference in where we're at. They have a bond debt, and they can't make it go away. We don't have that debt, and we can. And Mr. Barnes suggests, and others, well, just wait till we take care of our situation. And Mr. Malloy says maybe a year, and that'd be super. But it's been going on for a lot longer than that, and it's litigation that's nasty and vicious, and it may not be resolved in a year. The other difference is, I showed you those green areas. They are collecting money, and they're maintaining areas that the CDD owns. And those areas are not within our complex. And so we are not asking them to pay for our maintenance. We pay for our own maintenance. We're simply recognizing that it's not a single unified community, functional community. And we can get out, and we should get out, and Godspeed to them if they can get out as quickly as possible. The idea that they need our money is not one of the standards. I understand the budget problems that they have. Primarily the budget problem is because of the litigation that's going on. And in my analysis, they've been using our assessments from the View not to maintain our property, but to fund the litigation that they've got going on. And I hope that they're near an end of that. I'll simply say, last of all, there were a couple comments made that our predecessors knew that the assessments were there going in. Well, yeah, that's kind of true, but they knew it and we knew it, and we knew that they were wrong and protested from day one. Letter after letter of protest has gone, and saying that we intend to write this. So statutorily, the petition meets the guidelines, and I ask the commission to grant it. I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Let me ask you, if you knew they existed and you still thought you could get out of them, why didn't your client just pass on the property? It's, there's plenty of fish in the sea. You must have thought that you were gonna make money at the property, otherwise you wouldn't have bought it. Usually people have a profit motive. Why do you think after the fact you would be relinquished?
Surely they made a calculated decision to buy it. I think part of that decision was a belief that they were wrong and that some relief would be obtained. But still, we shouldn't pay it without any benefit just because it's there. It's not right to expect us to do that.
Do you take care of any of their property?
No.
Do you allow them to come over and use your amenities?
No.
So neither one of you use each other's amenities, neither one of you help maintain the other's property.
Well,
but you both entered into, and I will say this, unholy mess. If there's something that I can look back on in my 10-year previous career that I regret, this would be one of the top things when we saw this. And I'm very dismayed that Mr. Clark has been pardoned from his sentence.
And just to answer your last question, we don't physically maintain their property, they don't physically maintain ours, but they're asking us to pay to maintain theirs, and they don't pay us to maintain ours. That's the inequity of it. Other questions?
Other questions? Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I think one of the fellows said that there was some other property that they were maintaining. Was that a correct statement, or just the condominiums?
The condominiums and that office building in the fronting along 19, there are paved parking areas that are maintained. It doesn't have the lush vegetation and the level of maintenance, but they do spend some money up there as well.
That's that green area there?
Correct.
It's the harbor sign.
And that's also still subject to the bond debt.
Councilmember Beckman?
Well, I want to say how I feel for those stories about how you've been swindled, and it's heartbreaking. To me, it seems that it's clear that you've met these requirements. You don't have a bond debt. You're not receiving services for the monthly payments or the assessments, and that Venezia is asking for a little more time, primarily so they can have a little more money to pay for the litigation. And I don't think that's a good enough reason to deny the contraction.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Well, as you said earlier, those of us that were sitting on the council at the time we were sold, in hindsight being 2020, we were sold a bill of goods. At the time, I believe it was a unanimous decision to create the Community Development District, and we had every reason to believe that the grandiose pictures that we were presented were what were going to be the final product. That being said, if I'd known now what back then, we wouldn't be here tonight talking about this. As far as the dissolution, I'm asking the city attorney, I mean, if we were to take action to dissolve the entire district, we become liable. Do we become liable in the eyes of the court for the bond debt
Yes, sir.
Okay.
What's the balance?
See, that's,
We don't know what the balance is.
and
I'll go in there.
Mr. Clark may be able to tell us what the balance of those debts.
which is, I'm, people that came up tonight and said, hey, just give us a little more time. I'm more than happy to give you a little more time. I just, knowing the legal process and, especially now during the pandemic, there's not a whole lot of court process going on. But, I'm looking for guidance right now. I have no idea where to go with this.
If I have other questions for you, I'll call you up.
But I just, I want to hear what the rest of the council has to say, and maybe have you just chime in a little bit.
May I try to answer your question?
Sure.
I don't believe that the city would become responsible by the act of dissolution, but I believe it would be just an unlawful act that the bondholders would go and have reversed, because you can't dissolve property that has bond debt on it because of the bond covenants.
I think we could, I agree mostly with that. As long as the bond debt exists, we can't dissolve it.
Vice Mayor, do you have a question for Ms. Aiken or the petitioner?
Well, I have a comment.
Okay.
This was one of those things where I thought that I had a clear vision of where I was going with it, but then when hearing from both sides, I'm a little confused as well. I think the problem that I have is not knowing exactly what the time limit would be to get, it could be 30 days, it could be a year, it could be 5 more years. Just don't know. I mean, I feel for the people there that they have this on them, and I certainly hope that it can be worked out sooner than later. But if we were to go ahead and vote for the contraction, which I have some feelings that that's not quite fair for those people there to be paying for maintenance and things that doesn't even affect them. I think I'm looking at both sides. It's a hard one. I am kind of leaning toward the supporting the contraction.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Well, I guess I'm looking at the economics of it. And Mr. Clark, I guess, how many apartments are there in the View development?
339 in the View, 336 in Grand Venezia.
Okay, but 340 apartments in the View.
Right.
And your assessment to the CDD is how much?
$130-some thousand for this year.
130 for 300 and something units. So basically $350 per apartment unit. That's $30 a month, $35 a month in the rent goes towards that. Because I know you guys aren't just reaching into your savings account to pay this. Your residents are paying rent of such a level to cover that nut, since you know it's there and it's going to be coming, correct?
Of course they are.
Okay. If we were to dissolve it, are you going to lower the rents in those apartments?
I don't have an answer to that question. That's not a question I
I think
asked.
we all,
Our residents may get more amenities on site.
I just
Folks.
think, the fact that you know it's in there, the rents are calculated based on all of the necessities that the View has to cover their expenses and run their operation. I, being able to postpone this a little longer, I don't think, because, you're talking $300 per unit in the apartment, but these condo owners, they're getting probably $100 to $125 a month assessment, which is much more, much more onerous. I don't know. I don't think the fact that it's there, you think you can get out of it or thought you could get out of it going in when you closed on the property, I don't think that's a good enough reason to say at this present time as we sit here tonight, you should be relieved of the responsibility.
Thank you. Councilmember Bunker?
Well, I agreed with Councilmember Beckman that, I think to us, you've proved that it can be meeting that criteria and cut out of this. But from the response to Hoyt's question, it's very clear that the only people who are screwed in this are the individuals in both complexes. And then the shyster at the top gets to go free. It is insane and it's criminal, and this whole CDD should be dissolved. And if there's a potential of that happening within the year, I'm more than willing to give them time to band together to try to get that done.
Let me offer a suggestion here. Mr. Malloy suggested a 30-day delay so that we could talk to one another, and there's a specific reason for that. There's litigation between us and the CDD over these assessments, and it may be that we can resolve all of these issues together in a way that they would support us. And as I'm listening, perhaps it would be fruitful for us to take 30 days and discuss the global issue amongst ourselves.
Well, I think you can count to 3 is what I think you could do. Which is good. Ms. Aiken, I will call you back up if you could just be seated, please. These criteria, obviously, are there any other criteria that we're unaware of?
No, sir. The problem is, although the statute addresses the criteria for contraction, they're really just the generalized criteria for
This
formation.
is still a legislative decision. This is not a quasi-judicial
That
decision.
is correct.
So if it was quasi-judicial, we would have criteria, we would have to follow it. If we didn't follow it,
Well, you do have criteria, but it is your decision based on the information that you heard and the facts that you were given as to whether or not you believe all the criteria are met at this time.
right. Hoyt, I appreciate you doing the math. That's something I'd already kind of done in my head, thinking about this. I'd like to see some resolution with all of you working together. There are going to be winners and losers in any decision that is made. Tonight, there's winners and losers between the View and the condominiums. In the court hearings, there's winners and losers between the bondholders and obviously the entire CDD. But ultimately, there's going to be winners and losers in this process. One of the only reasons I remember approving this is, first of all, the Levitz property was hideous, and the plans were professionally done. And secondly, that the city did not have any risk. Those were the two main issues back in the day. But as it stands right now, I'd like to continue this and give some additional time for the two groups to come together and potentially find some resolution. I hope ultimately the CDD is, that we can dissolve it because the court has given us the ability to dissolve it. But I'm not ready to put the onus completely on the property owners and the condos, because I do think your client understood what they were walking into. And that's a classic, example of caveat emptor. And so for that reason, I'm not going to support doing it. I think we're hearing the desire for a continuance.
Yeah, and one last question. With the litigation that is ongoing in the courts, if the courts ultimately decide that dissolution of does the court have the power to dissolve the,
I don't believe that the issue of dissolution is actually before the court. Is that correct?
but if
The dissolution has to be done by the governing body that formed it. That's
That's
us.
us. But the litigation going on in the court now, if they were to find in favor of the CDD, does that mean, does that mean the bondholders just take the loss? The bondholders lose the,
Mr. Barnes can really speak to that, or?
Yes, please.
This is my spin on it, and where we are in the case, just so you all know, the assessments were dramatically lowered, thankfully, with help of Mr. Dwyer and Mr. Malloy. The district filed a motion to have those new assessments judicially blessed. The new assessments have the effect of reducing the bond debt allocation to each unit owner. So where we are now, we're waiting on a ruling on a non-binding arbitration on the new assessments. If it goes favorably, it was put up in front of Judge Crockett Farnell recently. If it goes favorably, we then go back to Judge Duraka and ask him to finally bless it. If that happens and there's no appeal taken, we write a check for the amount of debt allocated to the Grand Venezia owners, which is substantially reduced from where it was before the litigation was filed. We write a check, there's no debt burdening us, we're back here on behalf of everybody. And hopefully that's going to happen within the next 3 to 6 months. So
for me to make a motion to continue this, do I want to make a motion to continue it to a certain date of 30 days, 60 days, or as soon as possible, or do I want to continue it to a date uncertain based on the litigation? Am I asking you or you? I'm just asking somebody.
I don't want to speak.
What is the?
I don't want to speak for the district. I think on behalf of the Grand Venezia, I think if we're out about 6 months, we should be wrapped up by then. I really do. Now, the only issue is if the bondholders take an appeal, that would just, put a monkey wrench in everything. But
The petitioner has asked you to continue it for 30 days.
Okay.
Mr. Barnes is asking for more time than that. It's up to you how long you want to continue for.
Okay,
I'll tell you what we're gonna do. We're gonna take a 10-minute recess, because we're about at the 2-hour mark. We're gonna let you all talk, and then when we come back, we'll
you guys
resolve
talk,
this.
and we'll come back.
all right, thank you.
Which? Oh,
We will reconvene the council meeting. If I could have everybody take their seats. Having talked to Ms. Aiken, who is talking to the representatives, I believe they have come to consensus to continue this item for roughly 60 days until our meeting in May on the 6th. Vice Mayor, I think you had another comment before we recessed.
No, as I said before, my concern had always been the time element. And now that we have a actual locked-in time element, I think it's a good thing to get everybody to try to resolve this. So I'll be voting against it.
Well, we need a motion to continue to May 6th.
I will make a motion to continue agenda item 8.2 for 60 days.
Second.
Any other comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you all for coming out tonight. We'll see you in 60 days. 9.1.
Ordinance number 9436-21, an ordinance of the City of Clearwater, Florida, correcting ordinance number 9431-20, correcting.
Folks.
Correcting a scrivener's error in the quarter section column, the legal description, the title block, only providing an effective date.
I make a motion to adopt ordinance 9436-21 on second reading.
Second.
Anyone from the public to speak to this item? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 10.1.
Confirm COVID-19 emergency proclamation and adopt resolution 21-11. Assistant Chief.
Good evening, Javon Graham, Division Chief Emergency Management. This item is our weekly extension of the emergency proclamation. Currently, our county positive cases are at 67,349, and we've had over 1,465 fatalities. While our numbers continue to grow, I wanted to briefly explain the importance of this declaration, especially since it's been over a year since we've been dealing with COVID-19. February 26, 2020, we as a city began taking actions in response to COVID and have continually been working towards mitigating this emergency. Our mitigation efforts include things such as instituting pandemic-related policies and procedures, mask wearing, social distancing, quarantine and leave procedures, along with enhanced cleaning programs. We created engineered barriers, purchased PPE for employees, stockpiled hand sanitizers and cleaning supplies. We enhanced our technology so that we can operate in a virtual manner and push safety messages throughout the community. As we reopened, we created safe programs to protect our citizens and our staff and implemented protocols that adhere to the guidance of the CDC and the Department of Health. This has been a citywide effort. Due to our actions, I am proud to say that we have fared a lot better than agencies in our area. One example of this is even our citywide positive cases that we had for employees. While we have almost 1,900 employees, over a year we've only had 206 positives. And majority of those, let me rephrase that, only about 10 to 12 of those have been work-related. In addition to all this, we've supported various county and Department of Health efforts such as mass distribution, and we continue to give assistance in various degrees at testing and vaccination sites. While there's a lot more, this is just a little of what we have been accomplishing throughout the city. Currently, our efforts have exceeded $2.5 million in supplies and labor, and we're not quite done. This extension allows us to continue our efforts and will help us receive reimbursements and state and federal support when needed. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Chief Graham, I just want to thank you. Yeah, there's fruit flies or something in here. They're driving me crazy. So if you see us waving our arms, it's, we're not hallucinating.
Don't run out, leave.
Chief Graham, I just want to thank you for your leadership in spearheading everything and organizing, working with our partners, tying up loose ends. You really have done a marvelous job. I have the utmost respect for you.
Thank you.
I really do. Not to mention you have to wait until the end of the meetings for us to pass your resolution. Any questions or comments? I have a motion.
I move to approve agenda item 10.1.
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous, Ms. Aiken?
Resolution number 21-11, confirmation of a COVID-19 emergency proclamation, March 4th, 2021. A resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, confirming declarations of a state of emergency, providing an effective date.
Motion to accept the resolution?
Second?
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? 10.2.
Oh, accept a boardwalk easement from NESC LLC for the purpose of maintenance and general public use of a public boardwalk on real property located at 443 East Shore Drive, and adopt resolution 21-08.
Thank you, Mr. Horn. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tara Kivett, Engineering Director. This easement will allow the general public to use a proposed 15-foot wide boardwalk along the intercoastal adjacent to the development at 443 East Shore, as required by the current agreement with the city. City staff recommend acceptance of this easement. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Kivett? Anyone from the public to speak to item 10.2? I have a motion.
Move to adopt resolution 21-08.
The agenda item first.
Oh, okay.
10.2.
Move to pass agenda item 10.2.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Ms.
Res-
Aiken.
Resolution number 21-04, a resolution of the City of Clearwater, Florida, accepting a boardwalk easement from NESC LLC for the general public use and maintenance of a boardwalk at 443 East Shore Drive, providing an effective date.
Ms. Aiken, is it resolution 2104 or 08?
2108.
Okay, you said 04, so. I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Okay.
Close enough.
Motion to adopt resolution 2108, 21 dash.
Second.
All in anyone to speak from this from the public? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. 10.3.
Appoint one member to the Community Development Board to fill an unexpired term through February 28, 2023. Council members, since the work session, I did update the agenda item to include applications for Mohammed Abdul Rahim and Ms. Karen Cunningham. During the afternoon, Mr. Abdul Rahim requested to pull his application from this consideration and that he would submit it for future consideration. There, we have 3 appointments coming up next year, so.
Okay.
I would,
Comments, questions?
I would nominate Mr. Park based on the discussion we had on Monday. I think Mr. Park is very well qualified, longtime member of our community, and his professional background brings a lot of things to this board that are very important in the ability to make these decisions. So.
And I'll second that, but I just wanted to mention that I was glad to see Karen Cunningham also apply for this. She is very well known in our community, and I'm hoping that we can find a position on a board for her. Now she's stepped up and has interest in it. But I do think that Andrew Park, I still maintain that he has exemplary background for filling this position, so.
Other comments?
Yeah.
Councilmember Beckman.
I feel better with appointing Karen Cunningham to fill the vacancy. So we have a 7-member board on that CDB. We have 1 woman now. And, you know, Mr. Park owns a construction company, Ms. Dallas Griffith is a realtor, Mr. Jay is a developer involved in real estate, and Mr. Kushta is a builder contractor. And I think with Karen, who has experience in planning, she's worked with Forward Pinellas, she has extensive knowledge of the city, and what I think she brings that's unique is an extensive understanding of the residents in being president, serving as president and vice president of the CNC. And I think when there are judgment issues and interpretive decisions that have to be made, I would feel very comfortable having her on that board as someone who is closely attuned with residents. day in and day out. She's also had a number of emails and people that have submitted comment that they support her. And I just think she would be a great asset to that board for those reasons.
And I would second that.
Well, we have a motion and a second that's on the floor. I think Mrs. Cunningham would be a good addition. I have talked to her personally. And I worked with her back when I was the chairman of the MPO and the chairman of the CCC, which is the Chairs Coordinating Committee. So I told her that I would support her down the road. I do think that Mr. Park is the best applicant in here as far as qualifications. Having sat on the CDB, I know a lot of, the elements that you want from the different people. We have gotten overwhelming support just almost overnight. It just occurred so quickly for Ms. Cunningham. And I know there may be some folks in the audience that want to say something before we actually have a vote. So I'll open it up to the public.
Honorable Mayor, honorable council members, good to see you. I'm Glenna Wentworth. I'm an active volunteer in Clearwater, and I represent my neighborhood on the Clearwater Neighborhood Coalition. Also a new member of the Environmental Advisory Board, and I would like to recommend Karen Cunningham to be appointed to the Community Development Board to fill the unexpired term through February of 2023. I've worked with Karen on 2 Building Better Neighborhoods sustainability education projects. I've also worked with her on other projects in her capacity as president of the Clearwater Neighborhood Coalition. I believe that Karen is uniquely qualified to serve on the board, as she has a technical background in transportation planning, and also she has a deep knowledge of the neighborhoods and the needs of the community. I think this perspective is greatly needed on the CDB board, and I just am asking if you'll take serious consideration of her candidacy for this position. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to make sure you weren't looking at somebody behind me. Thank you. Bill Johnson. I'm speaking in support of Karen Cunningham for appointment to the CDB opening. Ms. Cunningham's professional experience with Forward Pinellas is unique to, I don't recall any previous CDB member that has that kind of transportation experience, and that is one of the elements of approval. And as well as a variety of other boards. As mentioned, she was president of the Clearwater Neighborhood Coalition, and as such, she is quite familiar with the aspects of the Clearwater Development Code, which is, of course, the basis for the CDB's application. But to me, most importantly, of all the applicants, and you're just looking at a worksheet that I put together, Ms. Cunningham understanding of the duties that are ahead of her, that's the right column, are most in line with the code and the Citizens Guide for CDB hearings that was just passed out. Now on the back side is actually the language from the Development Code. The duty of the CDB is to decide certain site plan applications knowing as level 2 approval. And that's the final approval, as council member or the vice mayor knows. And so this is really more important, but to grant that flexibility, the CDB must find that there is competent, substantial evidence that the proposed development meets both the relevant flexibility criteria and the general applicability criteria found in section 3914A of the code.
Only her application references the need for substantial evidence and the requirement to meet the relative code requirements. And the accurate and faithful implementation of our development code is necessary to revitalize all segments of our city. And I think a lot of you would agree with me that there's a lot of improvement that can be made, but we've got to do it together. And so I think that if you're supporting if you're concerned about the future viability of the city, Ms. Cunningham would be your first choice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Ms. Call.
An email was submitted by Liz Dreyer. I support the appointments.
You're out of time, Ms.
Out
Call.
of time. I support the appointment of Karen Cunningham to the Community Development Board. I can hardly imagine anyone more qualified for this role. Her work as transportation planner gives her a unique perspective on the impact of development. Her service on city boards and leadership on the Clearwater Neighborhoods Coalition show her commitment to improving the community. Her long-time residence in Clearwater gives her a deep understanding of our city and its needs. She is a conscientious and fair-minded person who will treat the job seriously. We are lucky that someone of this caliber has stepped up to serve on this board, and I ask that you give her the opportunity. Thank you for your consideration, Ms. Dreyer. An email was submitted by Danny Ferreira. Dear Clearwater City Council, I support that we elect Mohammed Abdul Rahim to be appointed to the Community Development Board. I think his experience and community commitment will make a great addition to the board. In my opinion, his many years of service and volunteer work to the local community speaks volumes in this kind of board member. We need to create a vision, Clearwater vision, that fits well and works for all our residents. And lastly, Mr. Russ Gable, he submitted a comment supporting his recommendation for Karen Cunningham.
Okay. Councilmember Hamilton.
Yeah, I want to be clear. I think Karen Cunningham's a great citizen of Clearwater. She's does great things, and I think there's a place for her in our process. However, if Karen wanted to be on the Community Development Board, her application would have been in before Wednesday or Tuesday. If she truly was looking for a position on the Community Development Board. And I could see myself supporting Karen at some point in the future. But, I still I'm still in favor. I'm staying with my motion for Mr. Park. His application was in on time. His resume, to me, is outstanding, and I think his contributions to the Community Development Board will be significant. So,
Other comments? Councilmember Beckman.
Is there a cutoff time, Ms. Call, on when applications can be submitted?
There's an unofficial cutoff time. Typically, if we know that there's an applicant or if council directs to seek applications after the work session, that I'm aware of it. But there is no official. I just try to make sure that all the applications are received prior to publishing the agenda.
Do we frequently receive extra applications after a work session? Does it happen occasionally, frequently?
Occasionally. It's very rare.
Thank you.
Well, I think any of the applicants would have worked. It's really just making a decision as to who is the best person at this time. So, as I told everybody, I would support Ms. Cunningham in the future. I also promised her, as I'm sure you saw in an email, that we would have a discussion about an ombudsman in the planning department, and I would like to agenda that conversation in the not too distant future. I know the planning department has their hands full right now, which I also expressed to her in the email that I sent after we talked yesterday at length. So, did you have something else to add?
No, I know that there's other openings coming up very soon with the CDB, so.
3.
Yeah. So we're going to be losing some members that have been on there for a while, so we've got opportunity to place people on this list in there, and Karen would be one of the ones that we'd probably consider.
Anything else? I have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Can you verbalize it, please?
Nay.
Thank you. 3-2, council members Hamilton, Albritton, and Hibbard in support, Bunker and Beckman in opposition. Anything else, Mr. Horn?
No, Mayor.
Ms. Aiken?
No, sir.
All right, closing comments. I think the last time I start from the left, why don't we start from the right, Councilmember Hamilton?
I've got nothing this week, so.
Okay, Councilmember Bunker?
I don't have anything either.
Okay. Vice Mayor?
Well, I know some people have been noticing us up here on the dais with no masks during the meetings, but we are encased in this plexiglass room here. But when I leave and I come in, I have my mask with me, and I do wear my mask when I'm out in public. And I just would like to appeal to, I know masks are unpopular with a lot of people, but you know, we're in this thing together. Let's try to get through this. I think we see some light at the end of the tunnel. So be nice to your neighbor. Be nice to other people. Wear your mask when you're out around them so they don't have to get upset, and then which causes you to get upset. So I just appeal for that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Beckman.
Yeah, so I have a few things written so I can start my timer and keep it at 3 minutes, but, so one of the things I enjoy most about being a council member is interacting with the public. So I've been to a number of neighborhood association meetings and the CNC and sat in on the Morningside Meadows meeting this week. And so I wanted to make an announcement that because they live out near Belcher and Gulf to Bay, that there is a Belcher and Gulf to Bay survey and meeting that's going to be occurring through Pinellas County. They're going to hold a virtual project information meeting on Tuesday, March 16th from 6 to 7. It's Zoom. It's a Zoom meeting to provide information about the upcoming study about the Belcher and Gulf to Bay proposed intersection improvements and answer some questions about the project. And you can register at pinellascounty.org /Belcher60. But if you just go to Pinellas County, you Google in Pinellas County Belcher Gulf to Bay, I'm sure it'll come up. I've seen and spoken to a few leaders. I'm super excited that, well, first of all, I met with Ms. Jacqueline Boland, who is the director of the Hispanic Outreach Center this week, and had a great meeting with her, and she shared with me the success of the pop-up vaccination event that was last Saturday, targeting Hispanic residents 65 and over, and how well it went. So that was exciting to hear. And also, it seems that we have in the works, thanks to our county commissioners, in particular Pat Gerard, I spoke to her recently, Dr. Chow, community leaders, our city leaders, Mr. Horn and Mr. Halios, and Zeb Atkinson from the NAACP, that hopefully we'll soon have a pop-up in Clearwater targeted towards our African American residents, because it is minorities that aren't vaccinated at quite the rate as others are. So I think that's great. We don't have a date yet, but as Ms. Boland said, that, we will need, she did count on volunteers. So hopefully we can get volunteers to help out, step up for that. As I said, I attended 4 neighborhood meetings this week, so I want to thank all those neighborhood leaders who organize and hold those meetings, and the residents who get engaged and work for things that are important to them. One of those meetings was a Sand Key Civic Association, and they wanted me to send a reminder that no dogs or bikes are allowed on Sand Key Beach. That's one of the things they struggle with. And then I just wanted to say that I have a meet and greet scheduled for next Saturday at Cherry Harris Park at 11 a.m. And my predecessor, actually, Dr. Cundiff, used to have monthly meet and greets, and so I'm kind of following that good idea. But I spoke with our city attorney about these meet and greets that I'm having, and I publicize them on Facebook, and I have a website and a newsletter, but I also have a flyer. And so one of the things our Ms. Aiken suggested is that I get permission from you all, or get an okay that I can have these flyers like in libraries or a rec center, wherever I'm holding in the neighborhood where I'm gonna hold a meet and greet. And I've held them outside because of the masks and stuff. Are you all okay with something like that? Being in the library? You know, just publicizing a meet and greet? So like if I put this in the North Greenwood Library that says I've got the meet and greet at Cherry Harris Park on the 13th, that be okay? And I don't mean to blindside you, and I'm not gonna throw Miss Aiken under the bus, but I said, well, should I bring this up, you know, around the dinner table? And she said, no, probably from the dais. So it's not something we vote on, you know. Why wouldn't we bring it up at the dinner table, though? Yeah, no, okay. So.
Councilmember?
I have it, no problem.
It's fine.
Okay.
Anything else?
Oh, yes, and I know I'm way over. Just want to say that the Neighborhood Affordable Housing Advisory Board is going to be meeting this Tuesday at 9 a.m. and the city's going to be giving a presentation about what they do and how they interact with the homeless. There's a Marine Advisory Board meeting this Wednesday, or coming up, and then a Public Art and Design on Thursday of next week. So there's lots of ways to get involved and find out what's going on, and I would encourage people to attend those advisory board meetings.
All right, I want to congratulate the Clearwater Marine Aquarium. They had a wonderful gala on February 19th, where the city manager and the vice mayor and myself represented the city. CMA continues to work on rescue, rehabilitation, and release of animals back into their natural habitat. They also do a wonderful job of educating people about our environment and marine life. I want to thank all those who participated in the Paint the Pavement in Skycrest. It looks dynamite. If you haven't seen it, go check it out on Cleveland. Had the pleasure of attending the Wanderlust series put on by Jazz Holiday at Station Square. I would recommend that everyone take advantage of that before it goes away. Station Square is a wide open park. They're distancing. Jazz Holiday's done a wonderful job. The acoustics are amazingly good in that area. Habitat for Humanity had their annual meeting on February 24th, and they did a marvelous job, raised some money, and they're helping people realize the dream of home ownership. Council members Bunker, Hamilton, Albritton joined me as we attended the annual Clearwater for Youth Scholarship Ceremony, and I just want to thank all of the people that donated $120,000. Our chief is on the board of Clearwater for Youth, and it's great to see the next generation and the fact that they're going to be going to college. And there are people that stepped up and gave $5,000 and $10,000 scholarships to these students. And they're going everywhere from Ivy League schools, some are going on to technical schools, but it was great to sit and talk to them outside in a distance safe environment. Last Friday, attended Hope Village. They've renamed from RCS as they unveiled their continued expansion into transitional housing. Heard from a client whose life has been transformed by them. Want to thank them. The Salvation Army had their annual Kettle Classic, and they continue to raise money. So many are in need right now with COVID-19, and they did a great job. Also want to encourage folks to go downtown, especially on the fourth Thursday of the month, to support local charities. This past month was Clearwater Urban Leadership Coalition, and it's very kind of the restaurants to do that. They donate 10% of their revenues, but it's great to come downtown right now. There's plenty of outdoor dining and seating, and it's safe, and all those vendors are doing a great job. I already mentioned the Clearwater Wanderlust series. You can go to www.clearwaterjazz.com. Wanderlust. Many tables are sold out, but we thank also the Downtown Development Board, who recently approved $30,000 in support of the series. The 2021 spring break season is here. If you've been driving on Court Street over the weekends, you've realized that. The City of Clearwater has a web page for visitors to use. It's www.myclearwater.com/spring break. Businesses are encouraged to remind guests that alcohol is not allowed on the beach or sidewalks. Beachgoers are encouraged to spread out and mask up. There will be no park and ride program for 2021, but there will be an increase in capacity with available transportation options. There will be no beach capacity dashboard in operation during this season, and there will be an increased police presence with the goal of keeping businesses, residents, and visitors safe. Summer camp counselors wanted. The City of Clearwater is looking for outgoing, enthusiastic, creative, and responsible people to become camp counselors at the city's summer camps. Summer camps are active from June 14th through August 6th. To apply, inquire at or call the recreation center of your choice. We also need pool lifeguards during the summer. The City of Clearwater is currently recruiting for pool lifeguards. Lifeguard fees will be waived if participants can pass prerequisite requirements. To see the requirements and to apply, visit myclearwater.com. Click on the Apply for Employment link under the How Do I tab. So with that, a good meeting tonight. I want to thank all the council members and our staff. With that, we are adjourned. God bless.